The sun had already dipped behind the broken skyline of the alien city. Neon lights flickered overhead as vendors packed their stalls. The market was closing, the crowds thinning, and the air was thick with the smell of smoke and spices. Jack wiped his hands on a dirty rag and sighed. He was just a janitor. Nothing special, just a human working night shifts in a place where humans didn't usually belong. He cleaned the trash bins, the cracked floors, and the greasy food stalls. No one noticed him, and he liked it that way. But tonight was different. As Jack moved toward the last row of trash bins, he heard a soft sound behind him. Like footsteps, but careful, almost scared. He turned slowly, eyes scanning the empty street. Then he saw her. She stood in the alley's edge, small and trembling. An alien girl, maybe 13 or 14, with pale blue skin and glowing lines running across, her cheeks like tribal paint. Her silver-white hair was messy. Her clothes were old and torn. Her eyes, wide and glowing softly, locked onto his. "Please," she whispered, barely loud enough to hear. Jack blinked, unsure if she was talking to him. She took a shaky step forward and grabbed his sleeve with her small hand. "Please follow me home," she said again, voice cracking like it hadn't been used in days. Jack hesitated. He looked around. No one else was there, only him and her. "What's wrong?" he asked carefully. "Are you lost?" The girl shook her head fast, her eyes full of panic. "No time, please. He'll come back soon. You have to see it," she said. Jack tried to pull back, unsure, but her grip tightened. "Wait, who? What's going on?" She looked over her shoulder like someone might be following her. "He hurts them when I'm gone too long. I need help, and you're the only one who looked at me." Jack's heart thumped. He wanted to say no, to walk away, to mind his own business like he always did. But something in her voice, something broken and desperate, stopped him. "All right," he said quietly. "I'll come, but you have to tell me what's going on." The girl didn't answer. She just turned and started walking fast through the back alley. Jack followed, glancing around nervously. They walked through shadowy paths between buildings, past flickering lights and closed doors. The streets became dirtier, the air colder. The city's lights faded behind them, replaced by silence and broken signs. After a few minutes, Jack tried again. "What's your name?" "Shari," she said without turning. "Where are we going, Shari?" he asked. "To my home," she replied, then paused. "It's not far, but it's not safe." Jack's hands were sweating, but he kept walking. He felt like every step took him deeper into something he couldn't understand. Shari suddenly stopped. They stood in front of what looked like an old junkyard wall, covered in rusted panels and sharp wires, but behind the wall was something else. A strange shape was embedded into the structure, half hidden under debris and metal sheets. It looked like a ship, or what was left of one. "This is your home?" Jack asked, surprised. Shari nodded, stepped forward, and pressed her hand against a small glowing panel. With a low hiss, a hidden door opened, revealing a dark passage. "Come inside," she said softly. "Please, before he comes back." Jack looked into the darkness, unsure. "Who's he?" he asked again. Shari didn't answer. She walked into the darkness, leaving the door open behind her. Jack stood at the entrance, his heart pounding. He had no weapon, no flashlight, no idea what was inside. But something told him. If he left, now something bad would happen. Something worse than anything he'd ever seen. So he stepped inside, the door hissed shut behind him, and everything went dark. The moment the door slid shut behind Jack, he was surrounded by darkness. There were no lights, only the soft hum of old ship machinery and the distant sound of something dripping. He could hear Shari's footsteps ahead, soft and quick, like she knew exactly where to go. Jack blinked, trying to let his eyes adjust. The air inside the ship smelled like metal and dust. His boots crunched on broken floor panels as he followed her deeper into the narrow hallway. "Shari," he whispered, his voice echoing off the metal walls. "Where are we going?" Shari didn't answer. Instead, she pulled a small glowing stone from her pocket. It gave off a dim blue light, just enough to see the outlines of the corridor. As the light spread, Jack saw the walls. They were scratched and burned, with strange symbols etched into the metal. Some looked like writing, others like claw marks. "This place doesn't look like a home," Jack muttered. Shari finally spoke, her voice quiet and flat. "It was never a home," she said. "It was a prison." Jack stopped walking, confused. "You live here?" Shari nodded once. "I hid here after we escaped," she said. "The others, they were too weak to run far." Jack's heart sank. "Others?" he asked. Shari turned a corner and Jack followed. The hallway opened into a small chamber. Once, probably a control room. Now it was a mess of broken panels, torn wires, and old blankets on the floor. 3 small figures sat in the corner. Children, younger than Shari, their thin arms wrapped around each other. Their eyes widened when they saw Jack. One of them had pale green skin with golden eyes. Another was missing part of one arm, replaced by a smooth metal limb. The last one coughed softly, glowing tubes running along her neck like veins. "They're kids," Jack whispered. Shari knelt beside them and handed one of them a small food packet. "We were part of the same project," she said. "They made us in the labs, not born, built." Jack's head spun. He sat down slowly against the wall. "Why did you bring me here?" he asked. Shari looked at him, her eyes full of sadness. "Because I thought you might help." Jack looked at the kids. They were sick, dirty, and scared. Whatever they'd been through, it wasn't just about survival. It was about hiding from something, or someone. "Who did this to you?" he asked. Shari looked down. "There's a man," she said. "A scientist, but not like the ones in books. He calls us subjects, not people. He's been hunting us ever since we escaped the lab." Jack swallowed hard. "And you live here, hiding?" Shari nodded. "We can't go to the city," she said. "They'll turn us in." Suddenly, a noise echoed from outside. A soft metallic thump, like a boot landing on the ship's hull. Shari's eyes went wide. She motioned for the kids to stay quiet and pulled Jack into a dark corner. "He's here," she whispered. "I told you we didn't have much time." Jack peeked through a crack in the metal. A figure moved outside, tall, armored, holding a glowing scanner in one hand. Red lights blinked across his helmet. He was scanning the wreck for life signs. Shari held her breath, gripping Jack's sleeve tightly. The children didn't move, frozen like statues. The scanner beeped and the man outside paused. Jack felt his heartbeat pounding in his ears. He whispered, "We can't stay here." Shari nodded, but her eyes were full of fear. "There's a lower deck, a hidden tunnel," she said. "But it's dangerous." Outside, the scanner beeped again, louder this time. The man stepped closer. Reaching for his weapon, Jack stood up slowly. "I'll go first," he said. "Get the kids ready to run." Shari looked at him, surprised. "Why?" she asked. Jack looked at her, then at the kids. "Because you brought me here for a reason," he said. "And I think you were right." Jack led the way, his steps slow and careful as he moved deeper into the ruined ship. Behind him, Shari carried the youngest child, while the other 2 followed closely. The hallway was narrow, the walls scratched and dented, wires hanging like vines. Every few steps they had to duck under fallen beams or squeeze between broken doors. Shari whispered, "The tunnel's ahead, down in the lower deck." Jack nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. His heart still beat fast. The memory of the armored man outside haunted every corner of his mind. "Is he following us?" Jack asked. Shari shook her head. "Not yet, but the scanner might have picked up our heat signatures. We don't have much time." They turned a corner and reached a heavy door marked with faded alien letters. Shari reached for a hidden panel and tapped it with her thumb. At first, nothing happened. Then, with a hiss and a groan, the metal door began to open. A wave of cold air rushed out. Darkness filled the space beyond the door, thick like smoke. The floor dropped down, metal stairs leading into the unknown. "Are you sure this is safe?" Jack asked. "No," Shari replied, "but it's the only way." One by one, they stepped into the lower deck. The stairs creaked under their weight, echoing through the silence. Jack could smell rust and oil, and something else. Something old and decayed. At the bottom, the space opened into a round chamber, filled with shattered machines and cracked glass tubes. Jack looked around, frowning. Some of the tubes were still lit, faintly glowing blue from within. One had a strange fluid leaking out. Another had long scratch marks inside, as if something had tried to claw its way out. "What is this place?" he asked. Shari's voice was cold. "This is where they kept us," she said. "This is where we were made." Jack turned toward her slowly. "You mean born?" Shari shook her head. "No, built," she said. "Grown in those tanks like plants. Trained to fight, to follow orders, to kill." The children stayed silent, their eyes wide and shining in the dim light. Jack felt a chill run. Through his spine, he stepped closer to one of the tanks. There was a small nameplate at the bottom, Subject D7. Under it, smaller letters read, "Enhanced Bioweapon Class, Emotion Suppressed." His hands trembled. "Bioweapons," he whispered. "That's what they called you?" Shari nodded. "They didn't see us as people," she said. "Just tools to be used in war." Jack looked at the kids again. One sneezed softly, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Another clutched a doll made from scraps. There was nothing dangerous about them, not anymore. They were scared children hiding in a dark place, broken but still alive. Suddenly, a sharp noise rang out, metal crashing above. Shari gasped. "They've breached the main level." "We need to move," Jack said. Quickly, "Is there another way out?" Shari pointed to a sealed hatch near the back wall. "It leads to the waste tunnel under the ship," she said. "But I've never opened it." Jack rushed over and pulled at the handle. It didn't budge. Shari joined him, tapping a few commands on the old keypad. Nothing. Then Jack noticed a panel beside the door, partly broken. He tore it open and began pulling wires. He'd done repairs before on human ships. This wasn't too different. He crossed a red and a blue wire and sparked the lock. The hatch opened with a long hiss, cold, damp air flowed in, and a strange blue mist clung to the ground beyond it. "Go," he said, waving Shari and the children through. They crawled inside one by one, but before Jack could follow, a loud voice echoed down the hallway. "I know you're here, Subject D," the voice growled. It was deep, robotic. "The bounty hunter. Give up the weapons and I'll make your end painless." Jack didn't wait. He slammed the hatch shut behind him and followed the others through the narrow waste tunnel. The walls were slick, the floor wet and cold. He crawled fast, trying to keep up with Shari's light ahead. "Where does this lead?" he called. "Old city tunnels," she replied. "If we're lucky, they'll lose our trail there." The tunnel seemed endless. Wet air filled Jack's lungs, and every crawl forward felt heavier. Shari's small light bobbed ahead, barely enough to see. Behind them, the echo of boots and metal clanks faded into silence, but none of them felt safe. Not yet. Jack finally stumbled out into an open chamber. It was an old maintenance room, part of the city's underground system. Broken pipes lined the walls, and flickering lights buzzed weakly overhead. The ER. Children collapsed on the ground. Exhausted, Shari checked each one quickly, brushing hair from their faces. They were tired, cold, and hungry. But alive. Jack sat down against a rusted wall, breathing hard. His clothes were soaked, his hands scraped from crawling. He looked at Shari, who now sat quietly in front of the kids, holding the youngest in her lap. "You need to tell me everything," Jack said, voice low but firm. "No more secrets." Shari didn't answer at first. Then she pulled a folded, worn piece of cloth from her cloak. Inside was a small metal cube with a glowing button. "What's that?" Jack asked. "A memory core," she said. "I took it the night we escaped." Jack leaned forward as Shari placed it on the ground. She pressed the button, and a hologram shimmered above it. Flickering blue light formed images. Lab rooms, medical tables, children in glass tanks. The voices began, cold and scientific. "Subject D shows increased emotion resistance. Subject C2 can interface with neural weapons at 87% efficiency. Begin memory wipe for failed unit. B4. Jack watched in horror as the scenes shifted. Shari strapped to a metal table, her eyes blank. Another showed the smallest child screaming as a machine drilled into her spine. "I was a cleaner at the lab," Shari said softly. "They didn't care about me because I wasn't strong or smart like the others. But I saw what they did every day." Jack looked at her, stunned. "You worked for them?" "I didn't want to," she said, her voice shaking. "But I was raised there too, trained to follow orders. Until one night, something changed." Shari's hands clenched the cloth. "They took one of the girls, Tala, the one with the metal arm, and they said she was broken. They were going to burn her. I couldn't watch," she said, tears in her glowing eyes. "So I stole the core, freed them all, and ran." Jack stared at the hologram again. The last image was of a man, tall, in a black lab coat, his eyes sharp and cold. Underneath, the name flashed, Dr. Malvin Cracks. "That's the one hunting you," Jack said. Shari nodded. "He wants the kids back?" "Not to help them," she whispered. "He wants to finish what he started." Jack felt anger boiling in his chest. "These are children," he said. "Not machines, not tools." Shari looked at him with tired eyes. "We tried to hide," she said. "But he has trackers, bounty hunters, access to city guards. We can't run forever." Jack stood, walking in a slow circle around the room. "What about the memory core?" he asked. "Could it prove what happened?" Shari nodded. "Yes, but only if it's uploaded to the city's public grid. Otherwise, no one will believe us." Jack thought hard. "I know someone," he said. "A friend at a repair shop. He has access to a grid port. But we'd need to cross 3 districts to get there." Shari looked down. "They'll find us before then," she whispered. Jack knelt in front of her, his voice strong. "Then we make them chase us. And lose." She looked up, surprised. "You're really staying?" Jack smiled faintly. "You pulled me into this, remember? I don't leave kids behind." The children stared at him, confused but hopeful. One of them reached out and touched his hand. "You're not like the others," the boy said. Jack squeezed his tiny fingers gently. "No, I'm not," he said. "And neither are you." Jack led the way through the old underground pipe system. The walls were tight, cold, and dripping with rust water. Every now and then the tunnel would rumble, as if the city above was groaning in its sleep. Behind him, Shari moved carefully, holding the youngest child close. The other 2 followed with slow steps, tired but quiet. They had no food, no weapons, just a memory core and a small hope. Their goal was clear: reach the grid tower on the east side. If Jack's old friend was still there, they could upload the evidence. The truth would be out, and no one could hide it again. But the city wasn't safe anymore. At a sealed service gate, Jack pried open a metal vent and helped the kids climb through. On the other side was a forgotten freight station, dusty and silent. It used to be a place for underground cargo, but now it felt like a graveyard. "We're halfway," Jack said, breathing hard. "If we can reach the edge of the merchant zone, we can disappear into the crowd." Shari nodded, but her eyes kept checking the shadows. "They don't stop," she whispered. "He always sends more." Jack turned, confused. "He, Dr. Cracks," she said. "He made copies of us, clones, soldiers, hunters. One of them never stopped chasing us." Jack's body tensed. Just then, a high-pitched sound echoed across the station. A sharp click-click, followed by a low metallic growl. "Too late," Shari said, voice shaking. "He's here." From the far end of the station, a dark shape dropped from the ceiling. It stood tall, over 7 feet, with long limbs and metal armor fused to its skin. Its eyes glowed red and a breathing mask covered its face. The hunter's voice came through in a robotic growl. "Subject D," it said, scanning the group. "Return the assets or die." Jack stepped in front of the kids, his arms spread wide. "We're not going anywhere with you," he said firmly. The hunter didn't pause. He raised a shock baton and stepped forward, heavy boots thudding on the metal floor. Jack grabbed a loose metal pipe nearby. He wasn't trained to fight, but he wasn't going to back down. The hunter lunged and Jack barely dodged the first strike. The floor sparked as the baton hit. burning through metal. Jack swung the pipe, hitting the hunter's side, but it bounced off like it hit stone. "Jack," Shari shouted, pulling the children back toward a stairwell. "Buy us 1 minute." "I'll try," Jack yelled. The hunter grabbed Jack by the arm and threw him across the floor. His back slammed into a wall and pain shot through his body. But he stood up again, pipe still in hand. "Come on, you metal freak," he growled. The hunter rushed again, but this time Jack ducked and tripped him. The machine man stumbled forward and smashed into a cargo crate. Shari reached a control panel on the wall and hit the emergency lockdown. Heavy doors began sliding down slowly from the ceiling. "Jack now," she screamed. Jack limped toward them as fast as he could. The hunter roared, rising to his feet. He hurled a blade, but it missed, sticking into the wall just inches from Jack. With one final jump, Jack dove through the doorway and the security gate slammed shut. The hunter pounded on the other side, his red eyes flashing, but the door held. For now, everyone stood in silence, breathing hard. Shari turned to Jack, her voice shaking. "You could have died." Jack smiled weakly. "Yeah, but then I'd miss all the fun." One of the children tugged at Shari's sleeve. "He's not going to stop," the girl whispered. "He'll find another way." Jack looked down at the memory core still glowing faintly in Shari's bag. "Then we don't stop either," he said. "We get this truth out, and we end it." Shari nodded slowly. But deep down, Jack knew. This wasn't just about running. Anymore, the hunter wasn't after revenge, he was following orders. Orders from someone who didn't see these kids as people, just lost property. They moved fast, but the fear moved faster. Every sound felt like a threat. Every shadow looked like a trap. Jack held the pipe tightly in one hand, blood still dripping from his arm where the hunter's blade had grazed him. Shari carried the youngest child, her breathing short and sharp. The other two kids stayed close to Jack, their small legs struggling to keep up. They finally reached the edge of the merchant zone. Bright lights and louder noise greeted them. A crowd of aliens from different species, walking between rows of makeshift shops and flickering holograms. Here, in the chaos of the crowd, they blended in. But Jack didn't relax. "Not even for a second. This way," he said, guiding them down a side alley. "There's an old garage up ahead. A friend of mine works there." Shari nodded, holding the child closer. "She's burning up," she whispered. "Her body can't handle the heat?" Jack glanced back, worried. The little girl's glowing veins were dimming, her lips turning pale. "She needs help fast," he said. Just a few more minutes. They reached the garage, a rusted door marked with a cracked neon sign. "Kale Repairs." Jack knocked 3 times, then paused, then knocked again. After a moment, the door opened a crack. A woman peered out, her eyes sharp, her short silver hair tied back in a knot. "Jack?" she said, surprised. "You're still alive." "Kale, I need your help," he said, stepping aside to show Shari and the kids. Kale's expression changed instantly. She opened the door wider and waved them in. Inside, the air smelled like grease and old circuits, tools and broken droids were scattered everywhere. Kale locked the door behind them and turned, hands on her hips. "Talk," she said. Fast, Jack explained everything. The lab, the children, the memory core, and the bounty hunter. Kale listened, arms crossed, face hard as stone. When he finished, she walked over to the workbench and picked up a glowing scanner. She held it over the sick child, frowning at the readings. "She's overheating," Kyle said. "Her system's breaking down, she's not stable." "She needs medical tech," Shari said softly. "But we have none." Kyle looked at the kids again, then back at Jack. "You brought a mess into my shop," she said. "A dangerous one." Jack nodded. "I know," he said. "But if we upload the memory core to the grid, it'll be over. People will see the truth." Kale stayed quiet, thinking. Then she turned and opened a hidden panel behind her desk. Inside was a glowing console with a direct uplink to the city's public network. "You've got one chance," she said. "Plug it in and pray." Shari handed Jack the memory core. His hands shook slightly as he plugged it into the port. The console lit up, displaying streams of data, images, and audio logs. A progress bar appeared. "Uploading, 1%. Suddenly, Kale froze. She turned toward the door, her eyes narrowing. I just got a ping, she said. Someone traced the connection, we've been found. Before Jack could speak, a loud boom shook the walls. The door buckled under a heavy blow. Shari grabbed the children and moved them to the back corner. Jack stood in front of the console, guarding the upload. Keep it going, he shouted. Don't stop no matter what. Kyle pulled a hidden blaster from under the table. You brought hell to my doorstep, Jack, she said. Let's make sure it doesn't leave alive. The second hit blew the door open. The hunter stepped through the smoke, his red eyes burning like fire. Kale fired, but the blast bounced off his chest armor. Jack rushed forward with the pipe again, but the hunter caught it mid-air and snapped it like a twig. Jack fell back, bleeding from his shoulder. The console now read, uploading 84%. Shari ran forward, screaming, Stop! These are children, not weapons. The hunter paused, looking at her. For a moment his hand shook. Inside that helmet something flickered. Recognition, confusion, pain. Then the youngest child, barely conscious, whispered something. Brother, please don't. The hunter froze. Everyone stared, silent. He looked at the little girl, then at Shari, then at the memory core still uploading truth into the public grid. With a slow step back, the hunter turned and walked away. No fight, no words, just silence. Jack gasped. What just happened? Shari trembled, holding the girl. He was one of us, she said, before they changed him. The console beeped. Upload complete. The truth was out. The memory core had finished uploading. Every screen across the city's grid now flashed with the images. The labs, the experiments, the broken children, the scientist's cold voice, news feeds exploded with the data. People stopped in the streets, staring at the ugly truth that could no longer be hidden. Some gasped, some cried, and some became angry. Inside the repair shop, silence settled after the storm. The bounty hunter was gone. The door cracked open like a mouth left speechless. Jack sat on the floor, holding his bleeding shoulder, while Shari knelt beside the children. The youngest girl was still weak, but breathing softer now. Kale patched Jack's wound with quick, firm hands. You did it, she said quietly. It's out there now. Jack nodded slowly. Yeah, he said, but it's not over. Outside, shouts echoed in the distance. Mixed voices, some full of rage, others full of panic. The city had woken up, and people were choosing sides. Kale looked at her monitor, frowning. The lab security forces are moving, she said. They're storming buildings, seizing backups, deleting anything that proves this happened. Jack looked at the kids. They want to erase the past, he whispered. And, if they find these children, they'll erase them too. Shari stood up, her face pale but firm. We need to leave, she said. Now. Kale opened a back panel in the shop's floor, an old escape tunnel used by smugglers. This leads to the outer rim, she said. There's a shuttle, hidden in the scrapyard there. You can take it and vanish. Jack hesitated. What about you? He asked. Kale shrugged. I'll stall them, she said. I've done worse. Jack nodded, but something still sat heavy in his chest. As they climbed into the tunnel, the youngest girl reached for his hand. Her voice was soft but clear. Are we going to be safe now? She asked. Jack looked at her, then at Shari. He didn't lie. I don't know, he said, but I'm going to make sure you have a chance. They crawled through the tunnel for what felt like an hour. Every sound behind them made their hearts jump. Finally, they reached the scrapyard, a giant open pit filled with broken ships and crushed machines. Hidden beneath a pile of old cargo crates was the shuttle, small, dusty, but intact. Shari activated the controls while Jack checked. The engines. The kids climbed in, their eyes wide with wonder and fear. This wasn't freedom, not yet, but it was hope. Jack handed Shari the last supply bag and stepped back. She blinked, confused. You're not coming, she asked. Jack shook his head. They'll keep coming unless someone slows them down, he said. You get them out of here. I'll handle what's next. Shari's voice cracked. You've done enough, Jack, please. He smiled softly. No, he said. I didn't do enough before when I could have stopped people like them. But I will now. She stepped forward and hugged him tightly. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then she whispered, "We'll remember you, Jack." Touched the top of the youngest child's head and whispered, "You live, okay? You grow up strong and kind and free." The shuttle's door closed and the engines began to hum. Jack stepped back, his figure slowly shrinking in the glow of the rising ship. As the shuttle lifted off, the children pressed their hands to the window, watching the only human who had ever fought for them disappear into the dust below. Hours later, across the city, protests had started. People marched through the streets holding signs that said, "Children, not weapons," and "End the experiments." Crax's lab was shut down, his name now hated, his face burned on every broadcast, but Jack didn't see it. He stood at the edge of the scrapyard watching the lights in the sky fade. His body ached, but his heart was steady, because in a broken galaxy, sometimes hope wasn't born in palaces. Sometimes it was carried by a janitor who stayed after hours and followed a scared alien girl home.